Hey everyone, welcome to my review of Dandara for Nintendo Switch. I'd like to take a second to thank Long Hat House for sending me a review copy. Dandara is a game where there's no up or down. Every surface can be a wall or a floor or a ceiling. Think like Inception. And Dandara can't walk, that's the name of the main character, but they can jump in between them. I'm not sure how long I've played the game so far, because after one day of play, it said that I had played for 19 hours, which is certainly not accurate. And I don't blame Long Hat House for that inaccuracy. I think that this happened to me on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well. I think it might be an overall issue with the Switch and the way that the Switch puts games to sleep. If you have the game running and then you just hit the sleep button on your Switch, I think in any game that has its own internal counter will continue to tick up. And that's where it's running into the issue for me anyway. So if you hadn't heard of Dandara before, it's a Metroidvania style game. If you've never played a Metroidvania style game before, think of an open, sprawling world where you can go pretty much anywhere you want, but there's going to be things that get in your way, like maybe you can't quite make that jump yet, but you kind of make a mental note of that jump that you can't make now and come back later after you've gotten jump boots per se, and now you suddenly can. That's the kind of gameplay that you're looking at with Dandara, and it's a pretty good example of the Metroidvania genre. Now, I've talked about the genre on my shows before. I'm a pretty big fan of this genre of game. I mean, I've got Metroid running on my arcade cabinet behind me. And if you've never played it before, basically the gameplay mechanic works like this. As you move from point A to point B, you're going to take the long way around. There's going to be a shortcut, which you can then take afterwards, that you usually unlock by getting a power-up that you didn't have before. It allows you to take these shortcuts, and then you can traverse the world a lot faster. The traversal in this game is very, very unique. There are these salted surfaces throughout the level. They're on the floors and ceilings and walls, and Dandara can't walk. But what Dandara can do is jump between these salted surfaces. So anytime you see a surface that has like a coating of white on it, that's an area that you can jump to. And it's a really fun traversal mechanic. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I really find it to be unique. The main character also has an attack. It's pretty short range, and it's also widespread. Think like a big shotgun, but it comes out as like 4 arrows coming out at your enemy. And of course, since it's a Metroidvania game, it's upgradable. And later on, you will also pick up other attacks. I won't talk about what types of attacks you're going to get because I don't want to spoil that stuff for you. Speaking of upgrades, this is something that I really like about Dandara. If you've ever played a game like Metroid before, you know that basically in order to upgrade your character, like if you want to be able to carry more missiles, you have to go and find those missiles. If you want to increase your health, then you have to go and find more health. In Dandara, it's done a little bit differently. You get to choose how your character improves. As you fight enemies and unlock chests, you're going to unlock salt, which can be used at camps to upgrade. There's a few different ways that you can upgrade yourself, and every upgrade costs the same. So the first upgrade costs a set amount, then the second upgrade costs a set amount, and it doesn't matter where you've put your points before. So for instance, if it's your 10th upgrade, you can put the salt either into your health or your energy, and it costs the same even if you've already upgraded your health 9 times and your energy only once. Camps are where you go when you die, and they're also the place where you upgrade your character. I'll tell you this, I died a lot, and when you die, you lose all of the salt that you're carrying, but you keep all of the power-ups that you've earned. It feels like there's no real penalty for dying. However, when you die, you have to make sure that you get back to where you died, as you will leave behind a salt ghost that you need to pick back up. That'll pick up all the salt that you lost when you died. This is very reminiscent of Dark Souls. So like I said, there's no penalty for dying unless you die twice in a row without retrieving your salt ghost. Speaking of dying, you tend to die, or at least I tended to die a lot. And because of this, I felt like the camps were spaced too far apart. It's quite easy to get frustrated as you traverse the same areas over and over. You've played the game for 10 minutes and die, only to have to play that same 10 minutes of content again and die again. And it keeps happening a lot. At least it did to me. I'm a pretty chill guy, and this game had me very, very frustrated. Not because the controls are bad or the mechanics are bad. I just felt like the difficulty was a little too high. The game has a pretty decent set of enemies, and they all look really cool, and they vary their attacks. You're going to have fun learning how to deal with each set. The mini bosses are pretty easy, and the bosses themselves can be challenging. I love the design of some of the bosses as well. This game is truly unique in its visual design, or its art style. I think it's great. One of the things about a Metroidvania game that is so important is the map. And here's one thing where I felt like Dandara could have done a better job. I think the map could be improved a lot. I'd like it if it had more detail, and I would really like it if you could rotate the map, since the game is constantly changing direction. When you go from one room to another, the game will flip 90 degrees or maybe even 180 degrees. And the map doesn't flip. So this leads to some confusion. Quite often I found myself opening the map button only to be like, oh, I don't remember which direction I came from now because everything's in a different spot. It was very confusing. The game has a beautiful 16-bit art style. I'm sure that you've heard me talk about this before, but I just love games with this art style. The music is very 80s, and it's also otherworldly at the same time. I really like it. Though there is a section in the game where it feels like there's almost no music at all. I didn't notice it the first couple times through, but after dying multiple times and having to traverse that same section over and over, I started to notice that there was no music. And I ended up putting on my own music after a bit. The sound effects have an impact to them, which I really, really like. And I don't know where else to put this. It feels like I'm talking about sound, but the game patched yesterday, and they patched in HD Rumble, and the HD Rumble is really, really fantastic. They've done a great job. I always forget how awesome HD Rumble is until I play a game that does a great job with it. And Dandara is definitely a game that does a great job with the HD Rumble. One of the things I was really worried about when I first saw footage from Dandara is how hard it was going to be for me to control this character. You have to aim with your left joystick and then jump to a spot. But good news, it works really well. They've put an aim assist in to help you traverse the levels really quickly, which is it's very welcome. It very much reminds me of how first-person shooters have an aim assist on console when you don't have the precision of a mouse and keyboard. One thing that surprised me about the controls is I didn't expect to prefer the Joy-Cons to the Pro Controller. Because the Joy-Cons have a short throw, it allows you to move the joystick less, which means you can traverse things much faster. And you can also change directions much faster as well. I do wish that you could customize your controls though. I burned a lot of potions because it's bound to be. I'd much rather it be bound somewhere else, or let me select where I wanted things bound. Something else that I wish was changed was the map is on the minus button. I really like the Joy-Cons. They're fantastic, but the minus button on the left Joy-Con is terrible. It's kind of hard to reach, but you know, it's no harder to reach than the plus button on the other Joy-Con. But because of its shape, it feels like it's hard to depress. And I almost wish that the button was different, or that in Dandara, they would switch the pause button and the map button. Usually you use the minus to get to the map button and plus to pause the game. I almost never pause the game. Instead, I bring up the map all the time. And I just find the plus button easier to press. So it would be a welcome change if Long Hat House would allow us to change our buttons around. Dandara is a game that I really, really liked at the beginning. After I had gotten into the game more, I would say probably after the first major boss, they warn you they say, look, the difficulty is going to get a lot harder from here. But the difficulty was like a hockey stick. I'm sure that you've seen a graph that goes like that before. It just shoots up really, really fast. And I would have preferred the game have a more steady difficulty progression. This one just gets real hard real quick. One thing that I want to make sure that I warn people about is if you're in an area and you feel like, man, this is impossible, I can't do this, look around on the map and see if there's some other place that you could get to. I was streaming this game on Twitch and I was banging my head against the wall over and over trying to get across this one section. And finally I said, you know what, guys, that's enough for me. I need to take a break from this game. I canceled the rest of the stream. It was about a half an hour earlier than I had meant to. And I shut the game off and went and did something else. I turned the game back on later that night and I decided, well, let me see if I can go somewhere else and see what happens. And I spent probably a good 2 hours moving around this completely different area. I got lots of salt and I was able to upgrade a lot of my abilities. I had way more hearts and other stuff as well. And I gained a new ability as well. And all of that stuff really did help me get through that part that I was really having trouble with. I almost wish that they had made it so that I couldn't go through to that one spot where I was stuck. But I'm sure that speedrunners would disagree with me. I wish that there was maybe a person there that was like, hey, don't go here yet. Go over there first and grab this stuff. It'll make your life a lot better. So my final thoughts on Dandara. If you are looking for an exceptionally unique Metroidvania game and you are up for a challenge, then I say definitely pick up Dandara. However, if you are prone to get frustrated by the difficulty of a game, then I would say hold off and wait. And maybe Long Hat House will give us some difficulty options. And one thing that I was thinking is how could they change the game in order to make it a little bit easier without compromising what the game's like. And I think that the best way is just to add in more camps. You know, if I select easy on the different modes, easy, medium, and hard, just add in more camps. There was one section that I kept going through over and over. And, you know, I'd get to the end and I would have almost no health left. Maybe one little heart. And I was like, oh, man, if anything looks at me cross-eyed, I'm going to pass out dead. So if there was a camp right at the end of that section, that would have been alleviated for me. And I think I would have had a lot more fun with the game. Overall, I think Dandara is really fun, but you have to be ready for a challenge. So take that with a grain of salt.